Hello, Flutura Açka. We are here to talk about your book, Kruis van Vergetelheid, which we presented in the bookshop in Antwerp, De Groene Waterman. It is a book that strikes us in the West. It's very remarkable because it is about something we cannot imagine anymore, which is Bloodfield Revenge, an old law which is much more important than what the official law should be.
Yeah, in fact, this book, this theme, also for Albanians, is shocking, nowadays, because they thought they forgot, they left in the past. It's a book for it's a law for centuries once, and then it doesn't need anymore to be nowadays. But there is still are still children locked, are still killing in the name of Canon, and still blood revenge around there. Of course, it's located in small places and in remote areas, but nevertheless, the fact that it's still there in the heart of Europe, still to exist, I think it's something harsh also for Albanians themselves. The fact that I was dealing with this theme was because I was also touched with the fact that to think as a mother that my child can go out from the house, to go to the school, to touch the elementary freedom, the freedom of living. It's for me, it's the harshest thing that I could bear in my life. That was the reason that I started to think on this theme. Of course, came a book, and I think it's still actual nowadays. But the fact that it's still actual is, I think, it's a kind of alarm for society that we should change. We are changing, but we should change more.
How do they react in Albania on a book like this, which is critical about what they are, how history grew?
Yeah, of course. In this book, they are a little bit more indifferent in a sense, not indifferent for the theme or for the book itself, but for the facts that are in this book. They think that this doesn't belong to me, the people in the cities, the people in outskirts of cities. They think this is not a story for me, this is a story of mountains, of wild people. But in fact, also these people are obliged, I'm saying, sometimes to use this because they don't feel the hands of state, they don't feel the law working, they don't feel warmth, they don't feel protected. In this sense, they find another way to build a life with such rules that are harsh, but they try to at least to use in another way, just to get out of what can bring them the bad side of this whole story.
Do you believe that books actually can change society, that they can get people thinking?
In fact, in a patriarchal society like Albania, due to our history, of course, and our culture and traditional of the past, which works still heavy, in our society, I think a book can change. Really, a writer can accomplish his duty, that to delegate the voice of the society in his works. And I think especially my fifth novel, Adults Have No Homeland, I felt it that it's working. It's working in society.
In what way?
I heard the people were giving to each other, commending to each other like a tract, you should read this book. Even happened to me that I felt this crash, once I was with a journalist, and he, of course, maybe he's a little bit more fanatic than the rest of people dealing with media, which are a little bit more free, and they have courage to talk about these things, these themes. And he said to me, Phila, don't you think that your characters, these women, Albanian women, are going to imitate your characters? They have too much freedom than we as a society need to watch the women. I said, do you think they really can imitate my characters? Because my characters can divorce, my characters can accuse their leaders, their chefs. They can write articles against corruptions. They can speak openly. What is the weak point of politics? They are too open. One is a journalist, one is a piano player. They are free women, like all the women in Europe are. And I said, yeah, if this will happen, means I did my duty. That was my duty women to think and to stop and to eat this book and to feel the character is their own life.
Yet you say I write literary books. I don't want my books to be like a pamphlet or like you know a school book or whatever. So literature can do that. Art can do that.
In fact, in one of the reviews on the fifth novel of mine, I'm referring to the fifth novel because it's the latest one and it's more actual, and also the theme and also the way how I present it to the public, you know. And she said, of course, she's a journalist who wrote this article, and she sees this book as part of her life. And she said, for me, it's half media book and a half a book written from a journalist and half from a writer. I said, yeah, but I am not just a writer in this society. I have my statements. I am not a writer that stays in her room and like a big thinker and the future after 100 years, my thoughts maybe someone will discover. No, I'm a writer that I like to put my finger where is the weak point of this society. I am decisive in this, and I've done, of course, I know also what can happen, you know, that I am not so appreciate from the politics, from the circles of politics, or this society sometimes separate in clubs and in small you know, groups and clans. Of course, I doesn't belong to these clans, but I belong to something that I wanted and I loved, to say my voice with a high voice and without thinking that yeah, in the future judges the author, not nowadays.
You live partly in the Netherlands and partly in Albania. Perhaps it is a privileged status, I don't know. How do you look being partly in the West to Albania, and what is the situation of the writers there?
I think it helped me a lot. Not only for the space, the writers without space are writers that are like birds in their cage, you know. The writers should see the perspective. We are talking for integration, often, these small countries and countries that are still late, you know, like Albania, after dictatorship, that they should be integrated. Yeah, but integration starts from the mind, from the thoughts. You can do everything. We can't bring anything here. Let's say, not Coca-Cola, we can't compete Europe with nothing, only with the brain, only with the culture. And I think one of the duties of culture in Albania, or let's say exclusively for literature, is to go out from this local pressure, local thoughts, local behaving, you know. You should think like European, because we are referring now to a larger audience. And if we don't go out of this, how? This, I think, is one of the points.
And is it possible for a writer who still lives in Albania to do that? Mentally, I mean?
I think it's too difficult. That helps me a lot. Could do only reading, but it's not enough. Could do only movies. But I think this is one of the senses, a sixth sense of mine that helped me a lot. Yes. I think I have. It's a treasure in my life.
It's a third eye.
I think I see it as a treasure in my life. Yes. You know, I have been lucky, just lucky.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You.